Joining us now on the show, we have Bicol Saro Representative Terry Ridon, the newly elected chair of the House Public Accounts Committee and a key figure in the revived Quad Committee. Magandang maga po sa inyo, Congressman.
Magandang maga, Gretchen. Thank you for having me.
Una-una, congratulations. Welcome back to Congress. This is your second term, if I'm correct, and you've gone in with guns blazing.
I think that the Filipino people deserve no less. That we are certain that all investigations that we will undertake, whether within QuadCom or whether within the House Public Accounts Committee, will basically look into wastage, corruption, among other very important things to ordinary Filipinos.
Well, they certainly have made headlines in the past year, and actually a lot of conclusions heading to the close of the 19th Congress, which had findings on POGOs, had findings on the drug war by President Duterte, on EJKs. What is left on the table and what will be the main agenda of the Quad Committee moving forward?
I think as soon as the Quad Committee convenes formally, the first order of business would be to look into whether or not POGOs still exists in bits and pieces around the country today. So we'd like to be able to see whether or not law enforcement has fully dismantled POGO operations in Pampanga, in around Metro Manila, among other places. But second of all, I think would be to look into the intersectionality of the Duterte drug war killings and the missing sabungero case. I think there had been some reports that the kill team for the sabungeros are also the same kill team for Duterte drug war victims. No? So we'd like to be able to see more details about it. The manner by which they undergo the killings for sabungeros and the manner by which they undergo the killings for the Duterte drug war.
But you having watched the hearings from the sidelines, meron ka bang gustong idagdag dun sa agenda? I mean, bukod dun sa missing sabungeros, pag nakikita mo na nagbabalitaktakan, parang meron ka bang mga questions na gusto pang itanong that haven't been discussed?
Well, I think merely focusing on the missing sabongero case already has puts too much already on our plate. No? So I think that's such a big task ahead, particularly because of the personalities concerned, the high stakes that are in play there. So it is very important for Congress to be able to make a very fair, objective presentation. First, on how we should dispose of, and to provide justice also for the families of the missing sabongeros. And secondly, to make the case that the intersectionality of the killings of sabongeros and the killings of Duterte drug war victims should never go unpunished, and should never happen again.
Kahapon nakahanap sila ng bungo dito nga sa may Taal Lake, pero mukhang hindi nila nakuha yung DNA sample dahil masyado na raw damaged, and nag-disintegrate na. I guess, but the harder part here will be dealing with powerful people. Apart from the top businessmen mentioned in the case, of course, that's Atong Ang. DOJ Secretary Boy Remulla was here on the show, and he did confirm that they were investigating several politicians. Are you also aware of that angle?
Well, I think I've heard of it, particularly because the supposed whistleblower has already mentioned the several names, particularly politicians who are part of the Alpha list. So if there are more politicians involved, then the QuadCom would definitely look into these, and we'd probably be inviting them also to our hearings. Very important also to make the point that I think two of the siblings of the whistleblower had in fact been arrested by government And I think they would be able to provide more details, particularly on the manner by which the missing sabongeros, particular details on the disappearance of the missing sabongeros.
Oh, we can't wait for the hearings to start on that. Alam naman natin talagang pagdating sa QuadCom, nakatutok ang taong bayan dyan sa mga hearings na yan. Okay. But you have been named chairperson of the Committee on Public Accounts, which is responsible for examination of government spending and financial management to ensure accountability and proper use of public funds. As chairperson, will you also look back into the confidential funds? Because yun nga, no, even if this has been brought forth to an impeachment trial, we do know where it ended up with the Supreme Court. Pwede ba yun ma-take up pa rin ulit ng committee mo?
I think we can do a look back on it. But I think at this point, particularly because the 19th Congress has already been very much convinced that all the findings, particularly by the Good Government Committee and all other committees, particularly the Appropriations Committee, are already sufficient to warrant an impeachment complaint. I think it would be better off being discussed at a higher level, particularly relating to impeachment proceedings, no? But I guess the first order of the day for new order of the day for the House Public Accounts Committee would be to basically look into the infrastructure projects which President mentioned during the State of the Nation address. So in the soonest time, we will convene and we will invite directors, regional directors, and high-level officials of the Public Works Department for them to make a report on the status of all the flood control projects, infrastructure projects, whether actually implemented, whether delayed, whether there are reports of it being ghost projects. So all of these things the committee will look into, no, so that we can make recommendations on what to actually do with involved officials, involved contractors, and if they're like politicians involved in all of these ghost projects, delayed projects, we will have to be able to make them accountable.
Ang question ko is, lahat ba ng impormasyon na yun ay available to the public? I mean, where would you start? Apart from the list provided by the DPWH, paano sasalain ito? Kasi parang pagdating sa construction, di ba, alam natin maraming kaliwaan na bayaran dyan. And kayo nga rin po, hinamon ninyo si Mayor Magalong, present proof that lawmakers get kickbacks. How exactly could you trace? I mean, ano kaya yung pwedeng evidence na kung saan magsisimula para, to hold everybody accountable?
Hindi, ang totoo naman maraming mga problema at kontrobersiya sa bawat aspeto po nung paglalatag ng proyekto mula sa pagpaplano, pag-implement, bidding. Actually, binabanggit na kickbacks, parang sa bandang dulo na yun. Pero sa totoo lang, sa gitna pa lang mismo, for example, dun sa procurement process pa lang, parang kadalasan meron ng actual na problema dun kasi may mga rigged bids na rin tayo mga pinag-uusapan dito. So for example, merong mga sole bidders, tapos dinidisqualify yung mga ibang mga bidders. No? So maraming balon po ng mga impormasyon na pwede hong pagkuhanan. So for example, doon sa bidding process pa lang po, yung pong mga dinidq ng mga bidders na parang kumpleto yung mga dokumento nila pero tinatanggal pa rin ho sila sa listahan, pwedeng sila ho yung magpahayag ng impormasyon dito sa aspeto pong ito ng procurement process. No? Yung sa usapin naman po ng kickbacks, I think all it takes is basically a whistleblower, no, from the side of the contractor or from the side of agency officials or from the side of legislators to make the case, no, na meron pong actual kickbacks na nangyari. Dahil we have to go back to history. Kaya naman ho nalantad yung PDAF scam ni Janet Lim Napoles at ng mga senador at kongresista ay dahil meron pong kumanta from the side po ng kontratista. Hindi ba? So, I'm quite certain na as soon as we move along through the investigation, baka naman may mga matisod po tayong ganitong mga impormasyon.
Oo, kasi ito nga sabi nga ni Mayor Magalong, no, I've listened to his interview, sabi niya, dati kukunti na 10-20% yung SOP, ngayon hanggang sa parang palala ng palala, naging 30 to 40% na. Kayo ay dating, I mean, you founded and convened InfraWatch PH, which focus on infrastructure development. Nakita nyo ba ito noon nung kayo ay nag-iimbestiga dito? At could you corroborate, at least from your experience, yung statement ni Mayor Magalong?
Well, ang focus ko natin noon sa InfraWatch talaga yung actual na proseso. No? So, basically, pagka naman natayo yung mga infrastruktura, ang question naman na ho talaga doon ay gumagana ba ito? Talaga bang pangmatagalan ba yung pagkakatayo ito? Tumupad ba sila sa mga actual na proseso? Pero for example, yung pong procurement process, marami tayong nakita dyan na actual na mga anomalya. Kasi for example, doon sa mga China-funded na mga loans, parang COA mismo actually nagsabi na parang linuto yung bid dito sa mga proyekto na ito. Kasi for example, isang competing bid para mas mataas doon sa approved budget of the contract. So parang sino namang tao na mag-file ng bid para matalo at ma-DQ? Yung mga ganong mga questions, I think nakita natin yun during the course of our work in InfraWatch. No? So, but to answer your question, yun sa 30 to 40%, ang totoo, kaya ho tayo very concerned lang doon sa binabanggit ni Mayor Magalong kasi syempre, it is being often repeated in forums, on media, pero up until today, wala ho tayong nakikita pa kasi talagang aktual na dokumento, ebidensya, na inilalatag ho ang ating pong kagalang-galang na mayor na totoo yung 30 to 40% na kinikita o kinikickback ng mga legislators, whether kongresista man yan o senador.
Pero paano kaya matitrace yun sa tingin ninyo? Siyempre, yun nga parang wala naman din, probably with the no? I mean, kasi usually ang gagawin dyan, i-overestimate yung budget para sa mga material, o labor, o di ba? Parang, and then, you don't declare the whole thing, right? But in terms of like getting the actual evidence, would it be that hard pitch?
Babalikan nga natin, like what I stated, babalikan natin yung karanasan po talaga ng kaso po ni Janet Lim Napoles. Di ba? Ang talagang takuron, close
kailangan
associate.
Kailangan may kumanta. Oo.
Kasama doon sa mga nag-away sila sa hatian. Parang ganun ata yung naging kwento nung whistleblowing po noon. So, I'm quite certain pagka talagang nagtuloy-tuloy po yung investigasyon, may matitisod naman ho tayo dyan. Pero at least, talagang merong aktual na dokumento, merong aktual na nagsasalita na talaga ho nagtuturo ng mga pangalan. Hindi yung parang ngayon na parang it is being dispensed as though it is already gospel truth and actually involves
correct
almost all legislators. Kasi it would be a bit unfair. Lalo particularly doon sa mga wala naman hong mga kamuwang-muwang ng mga legislators na talagang totoong trabaho po yung ginagawa nila para sa bayan.
Balikan natin yung trabaho po ninyo dun sa InfraWatch. No? Sabi po ninyo, tungkulin ninyo to make sure that the projects are working well. Have you encountered the flood control projects back then? And paano nga ba yung kalakaran dito?
Well, for example, yung pong kasagsagan ng Dolomite controversy noong 2020, tayo po yung actually na first na nag-raise po ng red flag, no? Noong pong 2020. Kaya nga ngayon, isa ho yan doon sa magiging pauna rin pong mga investigasyon ng komite pong ito. No? So, but very important ho doon kasi nga, ang sinasabi natin, hindi lang ho yung corruption na pinag-usapan din ho natin yung actual wastage. Ang tanong, for example, doon sa Dolomite Inquiry, before even talking about overpricing or whatever else or corruption, was it ever necessary for the nation to pay 389 million for this project? Kasi, kung sinasabi ng gobyerno po noon, this is basically for the Manila Bay rehabilitation as ordered by the Supreme Court. The specific requirement of the Supreme Court then was for government to improve the water quality. So the basic question to DNR in that inquiry would be, did the Dolomite project actually improve the water quality of Manila Bay? Kasi nga, kung gumastos tayo ng 389 million, tapos hindi naman gumanda yung tubig ng Manila Bay, bakit natin yung ginastos? So, I think these are questions that need to be answered. So, very methodical po, I think, yung gagawin po natin. Dito po, even as we go along dun po sa mga flood control projects, ganun din ho. Was this project necessary? Kasi, syempre, ang sinasabi ng iba, ba't maliliit na mga flood control projects yung ginawa ninyo? Ba't hindi nyo ginawang mas malakihan, like at scale, no? Para, kumbaga, isang proyekto pero malaki. Imbis na maraming proyekto o maliit. So, yan yung gusto nating ipaliwanag sa atin po ng Public Works Department kung ganyan ba yung kanilang ginawa. At kung ginawa nila yan, bakit nila ito ginawa?
Tama po ba na may management fee din natatanggap itong mga contractor? I mean, when they get the project, I heard it was around 10%. And ang tanong kung na-maintain ba nung mga contractor na yun. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard of that. I'm sure meron pong maintenance expenses, no? Yung DPWH. So I think it's something that they also bid out to contractors. Yung pong pagme-maintain ng pong mga pasilidad, ng mga kalsada, ng mga tulay. No? So it's subject to another round of bidding po.
Okay, abangan po din natin yan. Mukhang marami pong investigasyon na mangyayari in your term. But before we let you go, no, just a bit of a word on the impeachment, which the House, of course, will appeal. They will file a motion for reconsideration. Any updates on what is going to happen with that? At sinabi po ninyo na the impeachment is almost impossible if the Supreme Court does not revise its verdict. Why do you believe so?
I think talaga naman po binago ng Korte Suprema yung pong old doctrine eh. Kasi dati two positive acts yung kailangan mangyari. Merong verified complaint. The second, and this is the most particular, most specific, referral to the House Committee on Justice for action. So, ibig sabihin, pagka hindi mo na, because these are positive acts, pag hindi nangyari yung dalawang positive acts po na ito, ibig sabihin, walang ginawa, hindi ko ma-fulfill yung pong requirements, no? Nito pong, for the one-year ban to kick in. Pero ngayon, with the Supreme Court decision, ang sinasabi na po nila, pag hindi mo inaksyonan ang isang verified complaint, or pag inaksyonan mo ng konti, pero na-dismiss, magki-kick in po yung one-year ban. So, ano po yung basic implication? No? Ang basic implication po nun, basta mag-file ka ng verified complaint, may kaibigan kang kongresista, kilusan man o hindi ng Kongreso ng Pilipinas, magki-kick in po yung one-year ban. So anong gagawin lang ho ng high official, Presidente, Vice President, Supreme Court Justice, Ombudsman at iba pa, makipag-usap sa kaibigan niyang kongresista. Boss, mag-file ka naman ng verified complaint, mag-endorse, endorse mo naman itong complaint na ipa-file ko. No? So, kasi, and that's all it takes to basically protect the person from being impeached every single year. So, I think yan ho yung kailangan pag-isipan po siguro ulit ng Korte Suprema as soon as the House submits its motion for reconsideration.
And when will that happen? Do you have any idea? At nakita niyo na po ba yung nilalaman ng MR?
Wala sa akin yun. I think it's with the Office of the Solicitor General. But I'm quite sure as soon as, I think before the deadline is due, masasabit na po ng Kongreso po ito.
Oo, tingin niyo po ba nawala na yung momentum for a refiling in February because nga of how this whole process has turned out? How have you gotten a feel of the Congress, the 20th Congress, and their views when it comes to refiling another impeachment complaint?
No, I think naman po, irrespective of whatever is the result at the level of the Senate in August, this August, or whatever the result in the Supreme Court, no, I think naman Congress will still be able to be committed by Feb 6, 2026, no, na mag-file pa rin po ng impeachment complaint. Kasi nga, syempre, this is a question of accountability pa rin po. So basically, if you haven't achieved accountability on the question of confidential funds and on the question of death threats against the President, the First Lady, and House Speaker, I think there is no reason for you to stop filing these cases.
What are your thoughts on what the ponente wrote? Si Senior Associate Justice Marvic Leonen. Sabi niya, when used properly, impeachment is a tool for accountability, but when abused, it is a tool for political retribution. What are your thoughts on that slant by the Supreme Court in its decision?
Well, he is correct that it is a tool for political retribution if it has no basis. But I think the basis for the impeachment of the Vice President is clear on the use of confidential funds and on the death threats against the President, the First Lady, and the House Speaker. So I respect him as a senior associate justice, but also when he spoke about in the decision about looking back to history, no, I think they've forgotten about the history of people filing frivolous complaints during the time of Mrs. Arroyo. So, kumbaga, hindi kompleto yung pong pag-look back po nila at pag-consider sa kasaysayan po ng Pilipinas when they actually made this decision.
Hindi ho ba parang na ano rin, I mean, like, taking a look at that statement, of course, the House is already being accused, no, of using this as a political tool. I mean, a tool for political retribution. But if you take a look at impeachment, it is political in nature, in fact, no? At saka parang pagdating sa ebidensya, I mean, it makes one wonder, hindi ba sapat? Hindi ba naging, I mean, pag nireview ng Supreme Court, hindi ba ito naging sapat for them to see na there was actual grounds for the trial to continue on? Or was the 1 year, I mean, 1 year ban the main determinant of that decision?
Well, to be fair naman po to the Supreme Court, I think hindi naman ho nila tinignan yung mga pieces of evidence kasi I think focused po sila doon po sa 1 year ban, yung pong revising ito pong doctrine ng Gutierrez tsaka ng Francisco. No? So to be fair to them, I don't think they had to actually look into when it was being decided, tingin ko hindi ho nila tinignan on meron bang actual threat against the President, the First Lady, and the House Speaker, or meron ba talagang misuse, or yung details po na misuse ng confidential funds. I think yung pinag-uusapan lang po nila yung sequence of events. But I think, hindi lang po ako yung nagsasabi dito, kundi I think highest Supreme Court Justice, former Supreme Court Justice already mentioned this, na parang may factual inaccuracies din dito po sa decision po na ito. May sinasabi po, and I think it will be part of the motion for reconsideration, kasi nga, may pagtingin sila na merong wrong consideration po doon sa kung paano ho na-archive yung pong unang tatlo at kung paano po na-approve yung apat po na impeachment complaint. So, I think all of these things will play out in the motion for reconsideration.
Well, I guess it focused on the process of the complaint being filed, if that's what you're saying. Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo. You have your work cut out for you in the coming years. No, we wish you luck at abangan po namin kayo sa mga hearing na yan. We have a Bicol Saro representative and second termer, Terry Ridon.